It's time to save the world. Let's try something else. All right. Back in the fight.
There are no secrets.
System pass.
You're mine now. Hack complete. Ay, pobrecito.
System pass.
I'm not done just yet. You're mine now.
¿Qué tal?
Just in case. No te molestes. Damn it.
System pass.
Now entering King's Row. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero.
Cheers, love. It's time to save the world.
Systems online. Weapons ready.
Quick on our feet. Hard to defeat.
We're playing by my rules.
Thank you kindly.
Find your strength. We are soon to need it.
Hello.
How y'all doing?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Defend objective A.
Back again. Did you miss me?
Enemies reviving.
singing with the angels.
My ultimate is ready.
Pick it up, pick it up.
We are at a disadvantage.
As they say, try again. Caught you staring. Thank you kindly. Thought of you. Just in time, as usual.
I'm en route. Thank you. Secure the
Let's
objective.
try that one more time.
Hold it.
I'll take a reading.
Objective lost.
Perseverance is my
Stop
middle
the
name.
payload.
Hey. Over there.
I am effervescent.
My time.
The enemy is here.
Job on, mate. Here goes nothing. Out with the bang.
Over there.
You can't keep me away.
Helden sterben nicht. Heroes never die. There's much for you to do. We will be ready.
Have we been here before?
I spear. My soul at your service. This does not compute.
Your time's up. Our time. Deine Göttin ist da. Right back up again.
Join me. Fall back.
Dynamite out.
sterben nicht.
Anna checking in.
60 seconds remaining.
Over there! Fire in the hole! Over there!
30 seconds remaining.
Victory is nearly ours.
Double kill.
Bingo! Farewell!
10 seconds remaining.
Their time is short. Hold strong.
Real thanks! Winning it!
Victory. Play of the game. Arriving at Oasis City Center.
Cheers, love! It's time to save the world!
Welcome to Esperanza. Prepare for battle. Select your hero.
Cheers, love! It's time to save the world!
I'd rather wait a century for progress than cause the harm you have. What a joy it must be to feel entitled to patience.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Objective unlocks in 30 seconds.
Advance to robots. Thank you.
I'll take a redo! Let's try something else. Back in the fight. They took it from us. You're online. Come on, stop the robot. Back to the car. Stop that fight. Stop the robot. Come on, stop the robot. Here goes nothing. Grabbing near the robot. Keep pushing.
Navigation adjusted.
Helping you up. Stop. Charging ahead.
I am checking in.
Let's keep up the good work.
Seven.
We must take back the robot.
Right back up
Don't let
again.
them push any further.
Stop that push. Come on.
Your team has lost the lead.
Hey, it's getting. We don't have the lead anymore.
Up and at him.
Heroes never die. Helden sterben nicht.
Come to me for heal. I'm going in.
Stop them from pushing the barricade. Rico. Our work is not done. Winning it. Perseverance is my middle name. Don't let them push ahead. Think twice.
Guys, I can see
Come on, stop the robot. Easy peasy. Dein Teufel in
Dictated the robot.
Over here. Let's try that one more time.
Heroes never die.
Rally near the robot. Keep pushing. Let's go. It's your birthday.
Marcus completed.
I will not appreciate.
Waits for no one.
Stop. I could use a hand. I'm ready to initiate self-destruct sequence.
Robots pushing.
You can't keep me away. Oh, having a rough time. Present for ya.
Forward spawn.
Let's try something else. I'm on fire! Over there! Enemy over here! Back we go!
Your team is close to
Catching
taking
up.
the lead.
They took it from us!
I'm going to forget gold.
Gotcha! Team up, back in action!
There's much for you to do.
Perseverance is my middle name.
Come on. Stop the robot.
Stop that robot!
Stop that
Come on, get up!
Outside enemy.
Cheers!
The robot is in our possession.
Slugjack!
Your team is close.
Pushing the barricade.
Entering Legion. 60 seconds remaining.
Position is instrumental.
30 seconds. Now entering mid-tower. Prepare to attack. Select your hero.
Cheers, love! It's time to save the world!
To find success, we must search in harmony.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attack commencing. Capture objective A.
Give up? Not in my vocabulary! Perseverance is my middle name.
Let's push the payload forward. Keep that in mind.
Back again! Did you miss me?
No time to wait. Pardon me.
Failure is not defeat.
You had it coming.
Be cautious.
Right back up again.
Get ready for a shot.
Let them out.
Stay on me.
What's the hold up?
Read it?
Get that thing on.
You can't keep me away.
Heavy stab me.
Step rider.
Tranquility.
And she's back in the game. Outnumbered. Careful.
Hey, it's Giggle.
Back again. Did you miss me?
You're a professional.
We're outnumbered. You don't know when to stop, do you? Restart. Aha!
60 seconds.
Forming you.
Rally to the payload. Wait the now. Blimey, I'm good.
Don't let up. We don't have much time. We're running out of time. Keep attacking.
Right back up again.
Traveling to icon mode.
And there's a bunch of really interesting stuff in here that I have, even though not all of it is actually from me. It was a team effort building it, and I probably wouldn't have called it that just because it's sort of a silly thing, but it's got, if you put a
Well,
flex
it's a fun
arm.
acronym, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Sure.
LOLs.
Yeah. So the lulls, got him. Really good, though. Better than TikTok. Better show that way.
So it was really disheartening how many people were like, "This was our best show." I was like, "All right."
Yeah, speaking of haters. Okay, I have to tell you though, and this is the first time I'm telling him on air, but I told you after the show last week as well. It is actually far more helpful than you and you guys probably realize to have a friendly presence. Like, essentially a living, breathing laugh track / supporter just sitting next to you while you ramble on and on about things, kind of nodding or raising an eyebrow when you say something stupid. Like, I can imagine at the height of the pandemic, you know, being an athlete, performing in an empty stadium. You know, I don't know, did I play that shot good? You know, like, there's no feedback whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it really does get you going. Anyway, back to the laws of Linus. One of the laws is never insult the audience. Yeah, and I do it from time to time. I break the rules. You know, I honestly feel more liberated with the floor playing audience because realistically, they pay for the subscription. They're probably hardcore. They can probably handle it. And, you know, every once in a while, you know, there'll be a brain dead enough take that I'm just like, you know what? No, we're gonna talk about this because that's pretty bad. But I shouldn't because, hold on, I'm trying to find the part of this. It's driving me absolutely crazy. Okay, fine. I will reverse the finding the code. Is it insult or no? It must be attack. Yeah, here it is. Do not personally attack the viewer no matter how wrong or stupid their beliefs are, not even in a fight. And this has actually helped us a lot over the last little while because there have been a few videos where we'd make an offhand joke. Say, for example, about, like, DDR2 memory, you know, being old. And it's like, well, hold on a second. In a lot of parts of the world, DDR2 is, like, still expensive and still current. And it's easy to live in our North American bubble, and it's not even necessarily wrong to live in our North American bubble because that's where solid, like, almost 60% of our viewership comes from, with probably another 30% from, you know, Western Europe, those like the Germanys and places like that. But you've got to understand that when you are broadcasting to literally millions of people, if only 1% of them are personally attacked by what you say, then you just upset 1,000, 10,000 people? For what? Why? To what end? Like, why? So one of the things that I'll do during Strictly with people now is I'll say, like, hey, why are we poking fun at people who like Windows Vista? That's just an example. Why are we doing that? And they're like, because it's funny, because they're dumb. I'm like, well, A, I like the Vista stuff.
Not so funny now, is it?
But that's not even the point, because B, who cares? And honestly, this is something where Yvonne has been a really good influence on, because she has basically said, hey, look, I think that you're too aggro, and I think that you're going to catch a lot more flies with honey than with vinegar. And she's right. I have basically never I shouldn't say I have never. I have rarely witnessed, like, an aggressive approach winning an argument on the internet. Think about it.
I agree with the statement in general. I think sometimes it is not. Okay, so this is a tech channel. We're talking about tech topics,
Yeah.
so it should basically always be honest because to be fair. But I don't think this applies to all arguments one could have, if that makes sense. We've talked about this before. I don't remember how I phrased it, but I think it was like sometimes you want to catch them with vinegar or whatever. Like, there's certain times where, like, I'm not willing to acknowledge anything.
But you don't have to acknowledge merit. You don't have to acknowledge any merit of their argument when there isn't any. But you could acknowledge maybe how they feel.
Nah.
Okay.
There are certain arguments where I think no. There is not, like, a ton of them necessarily, but there are certain arguments where I think no.
That's fair.
I don't know.
Intolerance will not be tolerated.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, that's fair enough. What we will also not tolerate is AI art generators blatantly ripping off the source material on which they were trained. That's right.
I called this.
There is already two major copyright lawsuits against AI art generators. Getty Images claims that Stability AI scraped the Getty Images site using it as a database to train its own AI art generator. These claims are corroborated by an independent study that found that Stable Diffusion was trained on hundreds of thousands of images sourced from stock image sites. Notably, Stable Diffusion has a funny habit of recreating the Getty Images watermark in the images that it produces. And this is figure 2 down below. This
Actually
is
hilarious.
hilarious.
That's really funny.
Whoops. This is a super weird image.
It
Is
is
this supposed to be like
It
a
looks
baseball catcher?
It looks like baseball mixed with football.
It really does. I do have to wonder what the prompt was. Also, I kind of have to wonder what kind of roids this guy's got going on here. Well, if you take steroids, that is your own life choice. Don't be upset.
Not insulting the audience. I like it. Yeah.
I actually just don't care. Like, if that's what you want to do to your testicles, then like... Mine are bigger. Okay, I break my rules sometimes.
Might be short, but he's got them big ones.
A study from the University of Maryland
Strong bead.
found that Stable Diffusion can sometimes end up closely replicating images from its training database. These aren't pixel-perfect copies, but the derivation is pretty blatant. That is figure 1 over here, where, yep. I don't think it takes a genius to see that there's a relationship here. I mean, you can't even move the wolves around a little bit. Where's the moon? Give me 3 wolves and a moon, you know? Give me something to work with here. Make it defensible. The second major lawsuit is a class action against Stability AI, DeviantArt, and Midjourney, claiming that their art generators are simply remixing the copyrighted works of millions of artists. The lawsuit's website calls such AI generators 21st century collage tools.
It's an interesting thing because, like the Bloodborne, if the lower image, which I believe is the AI generated,
I actually don't know.
but
It kind of doesn't matter because they're similar enough to each other that it's
and that's sort of the point. So,
Yeah.
say the AI generated image is used for, let's say, a mobile game, right? If it was called White Blood Cell Birth, and it was on the Apple Store, they would probably be gone after because the Bloodborne would say that's too close to our logo. You just clearly ripped off our logo, right? Yeah. So it's the same thing. And like, I've been caught in this argument a little bit because I went anti-AI art and I went pro-AI large language model, and people didn't like that I was kind of on the side of the fence. But this is kind of the example. And I don't know 100% really where it ends up being influenced, because it's still 100% true that the large language model is it's not true that but it's a lot less apparent. It's way less apparent. You don't have to do it. You can get that confused and put out things that other people happen. It's not as egregious, common, stuff like that. It seems like it's done better, but it also seems like it was easier to do it better because it's a large language model and the way that works is easier. But when it comes to art, we're seeing a lot of this. I had the example that I gave in the previous one, and these 3 examples are just as blatant.
I mean, here's the thing, though. Are people? They're okay. I'm gonna ask a spicy question. Does it matter what the law is if the overall social benefit outweighs the drawback to those of you who are affected by it? And to be clear, I'm not taking the position that the ends justify the means here. I'm just asking if we all collectively kind of decide this is okay because it has to be okay because this is really convenient for our lives that we can create a children's book from scratch in a weekend without needing an illustrator because we never learned to draw. Is this ultimately going to fizzle out? And are these lawsuits going to just eventually go away?
I don't think that's the average stance, though, so I don't think it would.
Well, it's not the average stance now, but most people have not used an AI image generator yet. Once people get used to the convenience of an AI image generator, will they be willing to let it go? Yeah. Right? Like, I mean, okay, another perfect example of sometimes the gulf that exists between what is ethical and legally acceptable versus what is socially acceptable would be something like the way that some creators approach React content. And I know this is gonna be a hot take. Oh, I can't believe he's talking about this, but it's like it's actually pretty cut and dry, right? Like I'm not gonna. There's no point not being transparent about it because the internet never forgets anything. So I might as well just tell you guys we're working on a reaction. Like it is effort, easy content, and it is like obscenely profitable if you can generate a bunch of views on content that takes almost literally no time. That's what it is. That's what React content is. And
What's your approach to it? I'm very intrigued. What is the approach to the React?
well, first I'm going to talk about what are the obvious problems with some of the React content that's out there.
Okay.
The defense that is used by, and I'm not going to name anyone because I don't need any beef in my life. It's a waste of brain energy for me. But the argument that is often used to defend it is fair use. Fair use is a gray area for one thing. It actually has to be defended in court. It is not as simple as, well, it's fair use, therefore it's fine. The only reason that you might get away with saying it's fair use is if nobody chooses to challenge you on it. So in a way, you could look at that fair use argument for React content as basically just a way that large creators can turn their nose up at small creators who can't afford to defend their work by saying, essentially, because you can't afford to sue me, it's fair use. That's a pretty shitty stance.
Yeah.
And a lot of what gets defended as fair use is clearly not. Google has a support doc for this because they run a little site you might have heard of before called YouTube, and so they have a lot of kind of like legal Q&A on there. And the 4 factors of fair use are laid out, or pillars, if you want to call them that, are laid out pretty clearly. So there's the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is commercial or is for non-profit educational purposes. If it's commercial, that's a big strike against you. And the second you hit monetization or pimp t-shirts or screwdrivers or whatever else, that's very commercial use, right? Courts typically focus on whether the use is transformative. That is, whether it adds new expression or meaning to the original, or whether it merely copies from the original. And this is a spectrum, right? This is not just black and white. It adds new expression or it doesn't. It's up to the interpretation and it's up to the arguments that get made. Number 2 is the nature of the copyrighted work, right? So using material from a factual work is more likely to be fair than from a fictional work. Number 3, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. And this is where a lot of React content, as it is right now, is in redo. A lot of people in the chat are talking about redo. Yes, that did go in favor of Ethan, but you've also got to remember and understand that fair use is something that is tackled on a case-by-case basis by the courts. And in the case of H3 Production versus that guy, I can't remember his name, Ethan, to his credit, did not use the entire original source. And the bulk of the video was, for better or for worse, H3's commentary, right? As opposed to just the original work being consumed in a way that is not benefiting the original rights holder in any way. Number 4, and this is another huge one that is highly problematic with a lot of React content right now, the effect on the potential market for or the value of the copyrighted work. If you play the entire video as part of the video, the impact is enormous. Let's say, for example, someone did a React video to one of ours where they pulled a few different things, but largely transformed it, largely contributed their own thoughts and their own expression. That is pretty obviously fair use, even though it is commercial. So usually I wouldn't consider our content to be primarily purely fictional. I'd say that we strive to create factual works. So it is more likely to be covered by fair use. The character of the use, while it is commercial, is highly transformative, and the amount that is used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole could be quite low. There also is potentially a positive effect on the potential market for the copyrighted work. So in the case of something like, let's say, let's stick with the example that we're using, just for the sake of ease of following along. So if you only provide snippets of the original video, but explicitly in your content you say, but there's some key parts of it that you should go check out, I've got it linked down below, there's a much stronger argument for fair use. As it is right now, if you upload a video that is essentially the entire original work, for profit, for yourself, with some chunks where you respond to or react to or talk over the original work, there is no reason whatsoever to go watch the original work. And so you'll see these large creators that are getting, in some cases, many times the viewership of the original work at the cost of the original work. And I honestly don't have this used statistic. Because, it's pretty clear that YouTube's copyright claim system is pretty broken. Even if something was clearly not fair use, I don't necessarily think that I would be entitled to 100% of the revenue, which, to my knowledge, is the only way you can copyright claim something. You basically just say, I think that's all mine. Or you can say, I think I deserve nothing. There's no middle ground whatsoever. And 2, the community backlash is just not worth it because there's this perception that I don't know. I actually just don't really understand why. Because sitting as someone who is, relatively speaking, on the top of the online creator pyramid, I can tell you right now that the community backlash that follows any smaller creator who's trying to enforce copyright is wrong. It's wrong. It's just plain wrong. It benefits the people who are at the top who don't need it. They actually have money. They could hire staff, create something original, get equipment, whatever. Whereas the people who are at the bottom actually need it. They can't build a screwdriver from scratch and sell 100,000 units, right? Like they don't have the same tools. And so to ignore these arguments just because, you know, we don't like people being mean to people we formed a parasocial relationship with, it's messed up, man.
Okay, so all of that being said,
Yes.
how's yours gonna work?
So what I've got in the I'm not saying it. Yes. So basically, general reaction time guide. Important, blah, blah, blah. Not that time someone reacted to one thing. Yeah, it was really interesting. So again, as a content creator, I have the actual numbers for how beneficial reaction content is to the original creator. The answer, in case you guys are wondering, that's even as someone with a substantial following already and whose content might already have significant momentum. On a channel from someone who's only ever uploaded, or on a channel that's only ever uploaded one video or something like that, where they don't have that critical mass.
I do think there's both ones.
Sure, and it depends on the nature of the inclusion.
Yeah.
If you include, so this is, okay, I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it. Unfortunately, I just, basically, I don't know, I can't find it. I've laid out some guidelines for what I would consider to be like ethical reaction, where the goal, the stated purpose, and not just the stated purpose, but the actual goal of the content needs to be to upload to the original creator, as opposed to, coming back to the pillars of fair use, harm the value or potential market for the original work. And I think that's something that has just been completely lost.
I think there is and there has been reaction content that is like clearly exploitive.
But we have to practice in that.
That's probably not the reason why that just happened, but it is true. But I have also seen reaction content that has like new channels, basically.
For sure. For sure.
It totally happens. And I think a lot of it we were talking about earlier, but like how instead of the algorithm should say community, I think a lot of it has to do with the community that follows that person. Are they only ever going to watch this person's content because of the host and they have no real cares about the source, and they're never going to follow through, they're never going to go to that channel, they're never going to check it out, whatever? Or is it a community of people that are going to follow through and are going to give support when they watch, when the creator watches?
The problem with that argument is it's not up to you.
Yeah.
It's up to the original copywriter.
Well, for sure.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what you think.
No, that's not a big thing.
Well, it doesn't, though.
Well, it doesn't matter. That's not my statement.
Oh, I thought you were saying that I, as the reactor, can just decide, well, my audience isn't really going to follow through on this, so I should just... Oh, okay, I misunderstood. No. Because I was like, really?
What I'm saying is that in I think especially the current era, there's a big mix of ones that are good and aren't good. Obviously,
even within individuals, there's a mix of doing the right thing and being extremely lazy.
I've seen example clips of someone who will go from really good reactionary content to a piece of content that probably that probably makes you want to go follow through with the aftermarket and stuff, and then the next clip where like certain places and they literally never say a whole thing, and they're just like, while they're chewing, and it's like, wow, all right, well, I don't really know what to say about this, but
well, I know what to say. They might watch LTT, and I'm not supposed to insult the audience.
But yeah, I don't know. I know of channels that exist that basically only because but then I also know of channels that hate it and that openly try to get people to stop and people keep doing it. And it's like, hopefully, it's rough.
Well, the answer is really simple. The answer is
reach out and ask.
Yeah.
And I do also know people that do that right now.
And that's the worst part. Like, I have personally had content used in montages or like mashups or reaction videos or whatever.
Yeah, like someone brought up in Floatplane chat, Gardner Bryant was a Linux creator that reacted to some of our Linux challenge videos. I watched them. I thought they were really good.
Yep.
Yeah.
But hold on. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. But I have personally known of huge creators, like enormous creators, that did not have a valid fair use argument for their use of our content.
Gotcha.
And could have reached out. Like, like absolutely could have reached out or had their staff reach out. Like I'm talking creators with a staff. Like Star Wars. That's amazing. Anyway, and it didn't. And that's just pure laziness. Even people I know. So there's a handful of creators that I have like a standing agreement with, like Austin, Marquez, for example. It's like, hey, can we just have a mutual, like, if I need to use a clip from you, and I'll make sure I like say it from you,
or whatever.
and if you use a clip from me, and make sure that you do the same. Can we just like not email every time?
Yeah.
But that's a positive. That's a constructive way to build community. Just taking stuff and being like, no, it'll probably benefit them, maybe. That's not good. And it should never be acceptable. And you know, you have to ask yourself.
One of the pillars of the
I think we should, yeah. I think that.
Well, you're speaking out against this. I think you would have to, right?
Well, it depends, right? So if you are reacting to, so a perfect example of this would be the recent CoffeeZilla Logan Paul controversy. Logan Paul's not going to give CoffeeZilla permission to utilize portions of his video. But in that case, CoffeeZilla is clearly transforming the original work. That is not sitting and eating while the Logan Paul video plays as like a weird spectacle or whatever. So in the case of a clear and obvious fair use argument, I don't think we have to. So we just have to... Sorry?
Is that reaction channel going to cover divisive things like that?
I don't know. We're not sure yet.
Is it a tech reaction channel? Is it...
So let's talk about some of the things we have in here. So you know, one of the things we could do is, like, we've done a few of these on the main channel, like reacting to community submissions, like best and worst builds and stuff like that. Reacting to tech submissions. But it's still it's reaction content.
But it's not.
It's ethical reaction.
It's not reaction content to the way the internet would interpret the term.
Really? Would you consider that to be reaction?
Because if you say react,
Let's pull it. I'm gonna do my pull dance.
You're gonna get some reaction content from that.
They're gonna side with you. They're gonna side with you even if I'm right.
Because you're wrong.
No, it's reaction content. Anyway.
It is reaction content by definition of the term. It is not
Yes.
reaction content by how the internet interprets that. If you say
But you asked what-
react channel,
Yeah.
people are going to think that you're reacting to videos because that's how that works right now. If it's user-submitted videos, then it's seen as a different thing. I'm working on it.
Why don't you, like, you're so confident. Why don't you put up a poll, smart
Because
guy?
I'm typing it out, come on!
Okay, so some other ideas. You know, I really love what Corridor 2 does, where they will bring on experts to react to, you know, so that's such a good example of how you can take very obviously copyrighted work from very aggressive IP companies, like a Disney, for example, and confidently include stills or even motion from their content in your video. Because if you are, for example, doing a detailed breakdown of how the CGI was done for a particular scene, you're sitting there, you're talking about how much work it was and how cool it was, you are not using a substantial amount. The effect on the original work is obviously positive. The nature of your own work is clearly more informative and or educational / factual. And even though the nature of the copyrighted work is clearly fictional, the way it is being transformed into something that is educational is very, very cut and dry, right? So anyway, bringing in experts, you know, something that I've wanted to do for a long time on the LPT channel, we just haven't gotten around to it. Might have even gotten as far as an email to Wendell, Sup Wendell, is I want to do LTT reacts to, like, bad hacking scenes. Bad image? Is that react enough for you? Huh?
That fits my thing.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is that
So yes.
okay? Is that acceptable?
Well, maybe not.
Is that under the umbrella of reaction content?
I don't know if it is.
Okay. What is common? Oh, your poll is bad because it makes it seem like a binary choice.
Because I didn't do the vote.
Oh yeah, Flow Playing Chat does not like it.
They want to vote.
Okay.
But that defeats the whole point.
All right.
And they don't get that, and you don't get that, but it defeats the whole point.
We want to do reacting to, like, bad product listings. So, like, going through, like, you know, Facebook Marketplace. You know, people who think their computer's worth way too much. We actually did one of those before. Technique.
Don't leave the question. I didn't leave the question.
Reacting to old
We've
videos of
actually
ours.
found that more people will click the top option. I put the top option is not the one that I was saying. Screw off.
They're right. They don't like the poll, and they're right.
No, they're wrong. They're all wrong. The whole audience is wrong.
We've got reacting to old videos of ours. So one of the suggestions was Linus finally watches what it's like to work for Linus and reacts to it, which I commented on. I said I won't do
You
it.
said you never would.
Yeah, I was like, no, we can't do that one. That one's off limits. But, like, overall, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, best and worst of TikTok, stuff like that. But again, that's getting into the gray area unless we're doing a really good job of reaching out to people Which I will tell you right now, for our trying TikTok hacks videos in the past, I don't think we've reached out to people. However, what we've done has been highly transformative. We are actually doing things. We're actually trying them. I'm not eating a box of noodles while I watch other people. So I think what it basically comes down to is just being ethical about it and adhering to the 4 pillars of fair use and making sure that regardless of who it is and whether they could afford to take us to court over it, making sure that we would have a strong fair use argument that we believe with certainty that we would win. That's, I think, the bottom line. And or just getting permission from the original creator.
Right.
That's where we're at on it. Because at this point, like, you're kind of stupid not to have a React channel. It's kind of like a Clips channel. Man, do you guys have any idea how long they pushed me around here to do a Clips channel for the WAN show? Do you know how successful the Clips channel is? I think it makes more money than the actual WAN show. Which is like, how does that even make any sense? It's just
like must, actually. Yeah. Because you're dividing it up into a bunch of content, and each one of those content pieces is
LMG Clips gets 10 million views a month.
Yeah.
It is actually, in terms of just overall viewership, it is on par with like what I would consider to be like B-tier tech channels. And I'm sitting here going, how is that even possible? They know they can just link to a timestamp in the WAN show, right? But that's not how people engage with content. They want it to be digestible. And there's a huge contingent of our viewers that is absolutely, just militantly opposed to watching long format content like the WAN show, but does want to hear about what we talk about on the WAN show.
And I've said this before, like I'm not going to sit down and watch the whole WAN show.
Oh yeah, Yvonne's the same way.
Yeah.
She never looks at WAN shows, but she'll devour clips. Like, yeah, what do I do with it?
And I've always understood why people like the timestamp gap. Or the incoming.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, it's a really, especially.
Based on how many of our topics we've hit so far today, this is going to be a marathon. You down, Dan?
They get pretty intense. So being able to sit down and watch the whole thing, especially in one sitting, is like half a work day.
And you know what? The reality of it is that a good title works. Like, this is great. A-Prime in the Floatplane chat, who is Alex P, one of our editors. He goes, I watch WAN, I edit tech tips. I'm going to add something here. I am really good at like creating YouTube thumbnails. I am literally like a creator of the drug, right? I'm a dealer.
Yeah.
I still end up being clickbaited into WAN clips. It is literally content he has seen before from people he can talk time he wants, who he works in the same building as, at least some of them.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he still manages to fund it. I don't make the rules, right? Like, I don't. It comes back to that conversation about, is it the algorithm or is it the audience? I don't determine what works. You have to go with the flow. You gotta go with the flow. So we're gonna make a React channel. We're also gonna tell you about our sponsors.
Also, names of things matter. I dove into briefly. I was playing Tarkov with a part-time player, and he made a clip until the cheating. He called it, first of all, his name is Goat Moth. But the goat, the O in goat is a 0. Like, yeah, never wanted to say that. Probably good. And then he named the short How to Kill a Gaming Chair, assuming that people would understand the meme of, like, they're not cheating and let's just have a really good gaming chair.
Man, I'm not really in the game anymore, but
come on, brother!
All right. What do you want to talk about next, Mr. Luke?
What's the wheel? Tell me what the wheel is.
Let's do the Wheel of Pain. I don't know if this is going to be a regular segment. I don't know if we're going to come up with like different segments or whatever else. But basically, I asked for a wheel, and I pitched kind of a fun idea for the show today. The wheel. Okay. I will spin the wheel.
I'm not excited anymore.
Well, let's take turns.
Okay.
We each get to spin the wheel.
Beautiful.
All right. So whatever boneheaded thing happened in the world of tech,
okay,
you have to defend it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the topic list for this week.
Oh, so are these topics?
Yes. Is Twitter's ban on third-party apps.
Okay.
Apple TV's terms of service requiring a separate iOS device to accept them. Samsung's attempt to patent to block refurbished screen imports. AI art generators. But I feel like we should rule out AI art generators just because we've already talked about it on the show. So if we land on that, we'll spin again.
Yeah.
And Wyoming's bill that was introduced to phase out EV sales by 2035.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, do you want to go first, or should I go
So
first?
wait, what happens is the spinner defending it?
The spinner will defend whatever topic comes up on the wheel of pain.
I don't think it's
Okay, whatever works. Go for it.
either way, right?
Yeah, I don't think it. Wow, really? That's the spin? That's weak. No, what? You can't spin it again!
I didn't see what it was, so it doesn't matter.
You must defend. Oh no. Oh no. You must defend Twitter banning third-party apps. I feel like I should run through. So here's how we'll do it. Sorry, guys, this is our first time doing it.
We should talk about the topic.
I will run through the topic, and then you will defend it.
Yeah, I like it.
Last Thursday, all or nearly all third-party Twitter apps broke. The same day, a clause was quietly added to its developer agreement banning the creation of a substitute or similar service to the Twitter application. So, in effect, I don't even remember some of the names of third-party Twitter clients that I've used in the past, but I have used them. Sure. Okay, yeah. In effect, tools like Hootsuite, or no, there used to be like, okay, for example, on Windows Phone, there wasn't a first-party Twitter client. There was like a third-party one that just hooked into the API and made it, use. It wasn't great, but it was usable. After a long silence, Twitter has announced that it was simply enforcing its long-standing API rules, which may result in some apps not working. Twitter has not responded to any questions about which long-standing rules were broken.
Well, they don't have a PR department.
Questions that were posed by prominent members of the tech community, like our friend over at MKBHD, one Marquez Keith Brownlee in high definition.
All from the cause we're fighting
In 2021, Twitter had actually removed a clause discouraging but not banning third-party apps as a way of building a warmer relationship with these developers. In other news, Twitter is now being sued by a consulting firm claiming that it has not been paid for services rendered to Twitter during its lawsuit to force Musk to follow through on his purchase of the company. That's really funny. We'll talk about that more later. That's really, really funny. Anyway. Okay.
I think you still isn't there one more thing?
Nope.
Oh, that's just not reason. Okay. Twitter is going through a refacing right now. It has a new CEO, it has a lot of new employees, it has a lot less total employees.
Does it have a lot of new employees? Twitter?
Yeah.
Twitter. Can they let go like 75% of their workforce? Okay, so they've got new employees. Okay, what's that?
They have some new employees.
Oh yeah, did I mention that the other person is allowed to poke holes in the defense the whole time?
Sure, yeah, I haven't made one yet.
Okay.
Maybe you can sit the F down. This is going to be so hard.
No, you have to be straight-faced. You're not allowed to acknowledge it.
All right, yeah, okay. So, yeah, they have a new face, and they need to be able to control their image, because their image matters, right? And having all these third-party apps running around, making custom experiences that are different to what they are coming to your experience could be bad for the platform. And they should enforce various rules that they have. You shouldn't just set rules and then not enforce them. It can be frustrating to be on a platform where the rules are really loosey-goosey, and they get applied to some people in a certain way and other people in a certain way. It's a lot easier if it's very clear what you can and cannot do. So if rules exist, they should be enforced.
No. I have to stop you right there because it's obviously not clear what the rules
so they're
are.
trying to make it clear.
No, they're not trying to make it clear. They're not responding. When people...
But that's not part of it.
No, that is not okay because a key foundational piece of your argument is that they are trying to improve the clarity of their rules.
Yeah,
by enforcing them. But if no one can figure out what rules are being violated, then they obviously aren't clear enough.
Just don't make third-party apps.
Just don't make third-party apps. That's not a defense of it. That's the conclusion of it.
Yeah, that's okay.
So you're just saying it's okay.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, that's all you got.
I think it's fine. Twitter doesn't want you to make third-party apps. So don't make third-party apps. I don't see why they would need a PR department. Because the apps are third-party. Don't make third-party apps.
I see. And just to kind of bring us back a little bit to your argument that Twitter is concerned about the image that it presents to the rest of the world and the damage that third-party apps could do to it. I mean, do I even have to explain how wrong that is? Twitter is doing all...
They're trying to release new features, they're trying to release new functionality, and if these third-party apps don't support those features and functionality, then those aren't going to get to the users. The image, the way that people interpret and use Twitter could be deeply affected by these third-party apps not responding and reflecting the experience that Twitter is trying to create for its users. So maybe they just shouldn't exist. And if it follows the rules to get rid of them, well, they should get rid of them because they should enforce them.
I see. So... if your goal in life is to have your product be as much of a dumpster fire as possible, then you are well within your rights to ensure that every user who interacts with it experiences the full dumpster fire.
I wouldn't word it that way, but they are fully within their rights.
Okay. Your argument boils down to legally they're within their rights.
That is a true statement. Again, wouldn't word it that way, but that is a true statement. Again, they're creating new features. I believe I'm not super familiar with Twitter features, but I believe there's new home feed. I believe there's new feeds in your home. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know Twitter features very well. But if the third-party apps don't reflect that, and that's a big thing that they want to push because they have this massive wave of users considering they're doing something right. And their servers have not gone down, despite everyone saying that they would. They want to push Twitter in a new direction, and you don't want third-party people controlling what direction your platform is going.
Okay.
If they're able to. Imagine you were releasing videos,
Alright,
and you started releasing a new type of video, but some third-party thing was just like, we're just not going to release that type of video whenever they release it. Would that annoy you as a video creator?
But what about user choice?
Would it annoy you as a video creator?
As a video creator, if someone created a curated feed of my videos,
If you started making
no,
a new type
and that's
of
the
content,
reason. No, and that's the reason that Twitter has engaged with these third-party apps over the course of their entire history, is because overall they benefit from a broader ecosystem compared to a closed, more narrow one.
if you were using Twitch,
Sure.
and you make a fixed up, say Twitch does more things than it does. Say Twitch actually was successful when they tried to do twice.
Sure.
And you started releasing a new type of review content, and it's compatible with Twitch, but Twitch just decides to not upgrade. I don't know. Say it's like AV1 or something,
Sure.
and Twitch doesn't update. So a bunch of users on Twitch are now unable to view those videos. But you've curated a massive user base on Twitch. That sees your standard content. So now you have these weird segmented content feeds.
Yeah.
You have some stuff that's going on
Yeah,
YouTube
and
other stuff that can't go on Twitch.
Yeah, and if that
because they're
third par-
refusing to update their platform.
And if that third party platform doesn't update, then obviously they're going to shed users through
Are they?
natural
You
attrition.
can't communicate to those users directly about this. Communication to those users is controlled by that platform. Why is this a good thing for you? There's no benefit.
The benefit
So
is
kill all third-party
all of them.
apps.
Okay.
So you can actually control features.
All right. So the last new rule I'm going to add to this segment is that we're going to have to add a time limit because that took too long.
Okay, yeah.
And two, our adjudicator will be Dan. So Dan, can you give Luke a rating out of 10 for his defense of Twitter just cutting off third-party apps?
That seems pretty weak. I'm probably going to give you a 3 out of 10 because they're legally allowed to do it.
That wasn't my argument. That's because I
Well,
said
if
you
your
worded
argument
it
wasn't
wrong.
clear, then it's still a 3 out of 10 defense.
I need to make sure that I just completely. Oh, you do the thing that you don't like.
What did I do?
Okay.
What did I do?
It just wasn't my argument. You said that it was.
No, I didn't say it was. When? Now that Dan said it.
He regurgitated what you said.
Well, that was the argument you were making at
No,
the
it
time.
wasn't.
Fine.
That was when I was.
I was saying if they're going to have rules, they should enforce them. I wasn't saying that it's legally within their rights.
Yeah, but they don't. They haven't made these rules clear. They don't seem to have. If they had these rules, then they should reply and say what the rules are. But it's clear that they don't want anyone to know what the rules are because then they might be able to adjust their third-party app to adhere to the rules. But they don't want to. And that's fair enough.
Yeah.
But to say that they want clarity in their rules, that's a bad argument. You did say that. This is going to be a great segment.
It's already great. I'm already angry.
I don't think I've seen him this fired up in forever.
I can talk again. I got a lot of potential things.
Okay, so, I mean, yeah, they don't want apps, right, Luke? But why shouldn't they allow apps? Is it their brand? Is it worse than what Twitter's making?
Yes.
Yeah.
Come on. Okay, Dan, you still have to rate it. We still have to move on. I know it's in the
I'm
wheel.
looking up. There's a 4
4
out
on
of
the
10.
Twitter argument, and I'm winning
4 out of 10.
67%.
All right, you managed to get an extra point. Are
I
you
got an
happy?
extra point.
4 out of 10.
I
I'm
hate
going to
myself.
burn this court to the ground.
Okay.
I'll put a timer and I'll make some things for next time.
Okay,
It'll
cool.
be fancy.
The real main reason, yes, it boils down to they simply don't want third-party apps. It has nothing to do with the rules. It has nothing to do with any kind of...
What if the rules let you do it?
It has nothing to do with any... Well, that isn't, though. It has nothing to do with any kind of benefit of having a smaller ecosystem other than that many third-party apps do not display content. So Twitter is trying desperately to something. I don't know.
Was that not defendable? I feel like that would be easier to defend than what I just defended.
It could be, but I
Because
mean,
now you're fighting against your own owners.
sure, but you're also fighting against your own partners and your own your partners.
You're defending ad block.
So no.
Yeah.
What you
If
could
it
do.
doesn't send ads and it uses Twitter's surface.
There's a correct way to update your API rules. The correct way is you give a time window for compliance, and you create transparent, well-communicated rules. And those transparent, well-communicated rules include, hey, you have to display ads at the same rate as any Twitter app does. Unless they just don't want third-party apps, which is, I mean, ultimately what you said, which is right, but it's not a defense. It's a statement of fact, but it's not a defense. It's still radical. It's bad partnership. It's bad management. Now I get the credit. I'm only familiar with some of these topics. So. Yeah, this is hard to spin. Should have made fun of the spin.
Because the monitor, the screens are not
any better. Bloody hell, did I just get AI art generators again? Yeah, I did. Crying out loud. Okay, I'll give it a prop.
Just get away from the screens. Yeah. There you go.
There we go. Let's go! Okay. Oh, no. Samsung screen patent. Okay, Luke, tell us about it.
I gotta find it. One sec. Where is it?
It's in the dock. It's in the dock.
For next time, in the section of Devil's Advocate, the topic list should be.
There's, you know what? There's a lot of things that we could do better. It's
a small thing.
We're trying stuff, right? Like we wanna kind of try to, without losing track of what the WAN show is, we want to kind of try and find some novel ways to engage with these topics. It's basically the goal here. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I am, actually. Man, he's getting fired up. I like it.
So this is the reason why I couldn't find it was this is the U.S. farmers win right to repair argument, or right to repair farm equipment, while Samsung undermines independent screen repair. There's been a bunch of posts in Floatplane chat that this isn't legit. We'll see through how this is written how legit that we say it is.
Okay.
But people are saying that apparently John Deere didn't actually do that, and Louis Rossman has a video about it.
Then I guess we'll
see what the notes say.
Yeah, I guess it'll be good feedback for our new notes creator.
Yeah. This month, John Deere signed a memorandum of understanding with the American Farm Bureau, an agricultural acknowledging the American farmers' God-given right to fix their own equipment, including bringing it to independent repair facilities. The move follows years of efforts by John Deere to lock down its products, which make up over 50% of the U.S. tractors and combines market. Farmers have long reported huge delays during planting and harvest in repair. There is hope that this memorandum might act as a framework for future law, but similar to New York's recent right to repair legislation, these kinds of agreements are often riddled with caveats and loopholes. I do believe that's like the issue. Voluntary standards are not enforceable, and the language of the memorandum is vague. Oh, that's an issue.
Right, so... Oh, I'm not allowed to say anything.
In 2018, John Deere signed a similar agreement with the California Farm Bureau to limited effect, and John Deere has agreed to provide its repair tools for sale, as well as granting access to manuals product.
Okay.
Meanwhile, and I think this is the actual part that we're talking about, because I think this just says Samsung. Okay. So, meanwhile, Samsung is now attempting to use an old OLED patent to get certain aftermarket and refurbished device screens banned from import into the United States. Thanks to by_Mew, M-I-E-W, Mew, who posted a link to this on the internet forum. This would restrict buyers from getting their phones repaired solely from the original vendor or licensed partners, which means the company can simply refuse to fix it. Samsung argues that this proposed ban is in part to protect consumers from inferior. Samsung has also added some tools and parts to its self-repair program with iFixit for Galaxy S22 phones and some Galaxy laptops. Some tools, who knows? There are still tons of devices that are covered, and the program appears to focus primarily on flagship products for the last 3 years, leading to speed broken performance. Popular budget. The replacement screen for the Galaxy S22 lineup comes bundled with the replacement battery and frame. It is not available separately, and tons of other parts just aren't available at all. Do we do the discussion topics?
No, I don't think so. Okay, I get to go now?
Yes.
I think this one is actually pretty simple. And the reason for that is that... Well, fine. Obviously.
I know.
Okay, the reason for that is that, as you've made an argument for very recently, actually, I am Samsung, right? So I'm taking on the role of Samsung. So I am well within my right to defend my patent. If someone has a problem with my patent and thinks that for whatever reason they should be able to import their own inferior or knockoff products that violate it, well then the correct legal process for them to go through...
Defending a patent? It didn't say anything about defending a patent.
Yeah. They're using their OLED patent to get aftermarket and refurbished device screens banned from importing to the US. And so if I hold a patent on these devices, well, at the end of the day, I have to defend my patent. And besides, there should be no reason that a user who purchased an authentic Samsung device made up out of authentic Samsung parts should want an inferior part. Why would they? If they wanted an inferior part, well then they could...
It's irrelevant what they want.
Well then they could go buy something from some other vendor.
You shouldn't be deciding what the user wants.
Well, I know what they want because they bought a Samsung phone.
You still don't get to decide what they
But they didn't want to compromise on quality in the first place, so why would they want to now?
Maybe their opinion has changed. You don't get to decide that their opinion or stance on things.
Phones are also extremely... Phones are also phones are extremely intricate devices. They are complex. They are difficult to repair. And here's the thing:
I think that the difficulty of repair should actually judge phone.
our entire lives are essentially tied to our phones. We run off of our phones, and so if there is a risk that the user could, thinking that they are getting a Samsung part, not ultimately get a brand new, authentic, fully functioning Samsung part, they could actually
Was
end
that
up
part
in
of
a
the argument either? I don't think there's any like duping the users about it being a Samsung part.
I would make the argument that the duping does not necessarily have to be done by the manufacturer of the part. I think that
Like repair shops
as
selling it
soon
genuine?
as soon as you make these janky parts available to budget repair shops, I think it is as likely that these repair shops will pass along the discount as it is that these repair shops will misrepresent the product as a genuine Samsung product. That creates a tarnish on the Samsung brand when users ultimately start to perceive Samsung as less performant and less reliable. Okay, the other bit, and this is really important, is that, sure, you can attack the limited devices that we're providing our self-service repair and our parts for, but I think it's pretty clear that for these older devices, it probably doesn't make economic sense for people to go and repair them anyway, given that we have great new phones available, like the A series, where you can get...
I don't think it's up to you to decide what is worth repairing and not worth repairing.
But I get to make my argument, right?
I'm also allowed to make counter-arguments.
Okay, we have a great...
So I do believe that if you want to enforce this level of patent, that you should
Sure.
make available all parts needed to repair said phones. And I do believe that they should not have to be bundled. I don't think you should have to buy a frame for a phone when you actually just need to replace the screen.
Sure, but here's the issue with that. For us to build these products to a standard of quality that our customers expect, it's not economically viable when the reality of it is, when we're mass producing them, we can deliver a great quality product like the A series that is functionally not even that much more expensive than if you were to just buy a display. Now you've got a brand new device with a great camera, great display.
As a part of your mass manufacturing, you can just create additional screens.
Brand new battery. Well, we don't have the line spun up for these old phones anymore. Why would we? We're not making them.
Create more in the first place.
But we didn't
It is
do that.
fairly... Well,
it's
you
too
should
late.
Commit to doing that in the future.
Well, we can talk about that in the future, but for now we haven't. As for foldables...
I think as a part, if you want to push this bill through,
Are you
I
letting
think
me
as a
finish?
part... No. I'm allowed to make counter-arguments. I think if you want to push this through, we will have to make some form of agreement that you would over-manufacture parts in the future, as would be expected from a company that is going to service warranties anyways. By saying that you can fix these phones in your like directly, you are saying that you have the parts.
I'm not saying you can fix the phone. The average user is an idiot, and based on that you don't seem to be understanding my argument, I think you might be one of them.
Go there.
Finally...
You're saying that you can fix the phones, which means that you have the parts. So the argument of not having the part is completely useless.
But the costs are high.
Sure, but you're saying that you can fix the
But
phone.
there's storage
means
costs.
You have the part.
Right. And there's training costs.
So charge the users.
And we
that.
have to build the tools. We have to build the program for this. It's going to take time. Finally...
Actually, none of that makes any sense. There's no training cost to train users to fix their own phones.
Oh, you have to create the program where they are trained to do it. Absolutely. Apple did it.
So they charge people for it?
No, but you have to do it. It's a fixed cost associated with running the program. You absolutely have to do it. A self-repair program.
Just sell it to iTunes.
Well, we are selling it to iTunes. It's just
more in an individual component instead of packaging.
It's going to take time. Besides, you got to understand, a lot of the sourcing for the components of a phone is not done individually. Like even at the factory. Okay.
Yeah, but you sell it on a screen as a component. It's going to have the connector cable. It's going to have everything else in it.
Sure. Look, you work for this channel, Linus Tech Tips or something like that, right?
I think we know.
Okay, so they did. Maybe not anymore. I haven't fired Luke in a while. Okay, they did a video where they toured the factory of one of our competitors, where you could plainly see that on the factory floor, components are actually coming in as assemblies. Like we're not gonna take finished assemblies and then break them apart into their constituent components for these repair programs. At the very most, you could possibly expect we would provide the same assemblies that
Right
we
now,
use.
we're currently talking about a screen, correct?
Yeah, but a screen.
So a screen would be one unit at 1.9 correct?
Not necessarily. Because, I mean, you gotta understand, like with global manufacturing, that screen factory that is creating the assemblies, that is not like a shipping endpoint for the supply chain. That goes to a factory as an assembly.
You can repair a phone.
Yes.
If I send you one of my...
We will use an assembly. We will use an assembly.
So sell an assembly.
Right. But I'm only talking about this because you told me not to sell assemblies.
I don't think I said anything about an assembly.
Well, let the audience be the judge of that.
The package that includes a frame and whatnot else, I don't think is the assembly that you're describing.
Well, it depends. That assembly may be very fragile. And there could be a high chance that the user would damage it. It's going to have to be handled on a case-by-case basis.
No.
Anyway, my final point, if I can finally make it, is that we're going to have to handle these things case by case. And as for foldables...
I don't think you have to handle them case by case.
Okay, I really do need to get this last point out so that we can get through the segment. Okay. As for foldables, you don't need replacement screens. A, because they are basically functionally impossible to replace. And B, they're flexible displays. How could you possibly break it? There. I rest my case.
Can you fix a folding phone? the user has an issue with it and sends you a folding point.
I'm Samsung the character right
Yes.
now. I legitimately don't know.
Okay.
I actually don't know if they'd be able to. They're quite confused.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, great point for playing the character. I was shaking and angry the whole time. I hate you so much. You did it. Yes! You did an excellent job. Embodying Samsung and all of the talking points that I just need to make are all disgusting and dodgy. Yeah, so you certainly get a bunch more points for... Well, I didn't feel like it. But yeah, I don't know. The arguments are loose, and I think I would have preferred to have a take that was why Linus would want to do something. Like if Betaware has made a phone, why you would lock them down with serial number.
I see. Okay, well, you gotta give me a score.
You're getting a 6.
I got a 6!
I got a 6! Because I almost cried. Oh, I would just like to fix things.
All right.
Okay.
What would it take? What would it take to get like a 9?
Well, let's see. A 9 to me would be your points are...
That was pretty. I felt like he had me on the ropes for a little while there.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
And then I had some ways to throw back. But like, what would he have to do? Like, what would that argument need to look like to be?
I think you probably have to...
I think it might be impossible inherently because the segment is called. Actually, I don't know if I ever told you guys what it's called. It's called Defend the Indefensible. That's what the version of the Wheel of Pain is.
So you would have to actually win damage.
Yeah,
I mean, not necessarily. Well, I have my own life. I'm extremely violent. Entire topic, right?
So for you, there is no match. Is what I'm trying to get to.
I don't think there should be.
If there was a way,
And that's fine.
if there was a reason for Linus to come up with to make, like, I don't know, even walking on the battery, like your phone, you can destroy the battery.
Cause fire.
Liability is there's no defensible
Yeah, I think that a well-designed Defend the Indefensible should never have a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. So basically, it comes down to how well you can play the part. I think we absolutely need to set a time limit for next time, or we need to set like a clear like a speaker's baton or whatever.
Yes.
So we can't talk over each other, but there's like a clear. I state my case, you offer your rebuttal, I get to kind of close out my argument, and then the judge decides.
Yeah.
And I think it should take place over a span of like 3 to 4 minutes. I think it's a pretty good time.
That's a good idea.
Ferna182 in the Floatplane chat says a 9 should be being so convincing you actually need to punch the other person in the face.
The pure patent argument is actually pretty good. I think it was, and I think you had to because you have to follow the points that are being made in the like article or whatever.
Sure.
But once you veered off the we were talking about patents, it just started being multiple. But when it's just a patent,
well, yeah, that's a patent. No. And I mean, okay. I think you could possibly be holding that anyway. You could attack the broken patent system.
oh yeah, I mean it's a versus.
Yeah, I mean, we became aware of a patent that is basically just like attaching RGB LEDs to a particular like product.
You want to know something?
And I'm sitting here going, well, come on, right? And the legal process for it is either you just make your product, wait for them to sue you, and then countersue, or you have to like go and try and get their patent invalidated. And it's like, okay, yeah. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
So I don't know if you remember this, but really long time ago there was a game. I don't remember what game it was. But during loading screens,
Minor deviant.
during loading screens, there's like a little mini game that you play. You know about this? And there's a patent on mini games during loading screens, which like isn't that important these days because most loading screens are pretty short now, right? But back in the day, there's some loading screens that were pretty chunkish. If you were playing like Morrowind on the original Xbox, it was long. That loading screen took forever. Loading back off of like stuff like that used to take a really long time. Painful. So at that point in time, if you could just play Pong, yeah. Like if you're playing a multiplayer game and there's a huge loading screen, you would like Pong or like some other like that would have been way better. But some
Bandai Namco.
Well, yeah. Why? They kind of, and they're just like, nope, nobody can do it. You have to pay up. And it's not going to be worth it to pay them for anything. If it's just a minor inconvenience, we're going to buy this.
So basically, decades of people's lives were spent sitting
staring at loading bars.
Why?
What was the point?
Money.
Please react to Sky Oblivion. Yeah, I know.
Oh, I mean, you were talking about it before the show started. It's not in the doc,
I'm
but
personally extremely excited.
why don't you tell the people what it is?
So Sky Oblivion, and let me look it up just to make sure that I say it in the way that they say it. Sky Oblivion is a volunteer-based project by the Test Renewal modding group. Test Renewal, sure, yeah. Test Renewal, as far as my understanding goes, includes Sky Oblivion and Skywind, which is the Morrowind. We aim to bring you Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion to a new generation of gamers who will use it for a long time. We're currently in the process of releasing Cyrodiil, along with all of its specifications and characters, into Skyrim and Skyrim Spectrum. So they built Oblivion into the Skyrim engine, and they make it texture. Everything else that goes into making the game visually, artwork, everything else. So it looks better than Skyrim did. And Skyrim, like vanilla Skyrim, is it's okay.
It's dated, but
sure it feels old, but it doesn't feel old like original RuneScape or Morrowind, for example.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel old like that.
Yeah.
Oblivion.
Like I can't tell what that is. It's not that kind of old.
Yeah.
Like is that supposed to be leather or stone?
Yeah.
You know?
So it's Skyrim was like it's kind of okay. It doesn't age as bad as a lot of old games, or
skin tone
over a decade. But the models and stuff they talk about their use for show progress. Player like you can try. Showing ad. Oh my goodness. Okay. Like it looks really good. It looks great. This is in the Skyrim engine, so the controls are going to be pretty good. It supports these like high resolution textures because the Skyrim engine does. I'm super excited about this. The announcement is like 2025 or something, but they've been working on this for a really long time. So the fact that it has a date at all is fantastic. And what I've heard from at least one member of the team is that they think that the date is very safe. Right? They think they're going to be done ahead of the dates that they placed. But they put it there because they're like, we can definitely make this. And that's the right way to do it.
Does that horse have armor though?
There's some armor sitting on top of the horse. And yeah, you can see like, no, it doesn't look like a release today, new AAA, absolutely.
But that's not the point.
It looks amazing. For the fact that it's Oblivion. It looks amazing even for like really high quality Skyrim mods, because this is a really high quality Skyrim mod. This is just the entirety of Oblivion.
And the thing is, like, the bar isn't as high for an older game. You're just trying to make it digestible for a modern gamer. Like, I tried to know when you talked about how much you loved it, and this is even like 10 years ago. I couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
And like for my kids, for example, you know, like I might love Final Fantasy VI, but between the janky translation and lack of creature comforts like autosave and stuff like it's hard for them to get into it. Whereas like I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, Pixel Remaster. Even if it's just to kind of share something that I love with my kids, it's probably worth the $25 or whatever it is. Versus just like, you know, blowing out a cart and sticking it into a SNES and, you know, it's just not worth it.
Apparently someone in that Pokemon chat said that they did have those. But yeah, Skywind is the other one. I'm obviously like more excited about Skywind because Morrowind's my favorite game. But Oblivion's I loved Oblivion as
It's
well.
the one Elder Scroll game I've actually played.
Yeah.
Like all the way through, tons of side quests. Like I played the crap out of Oblivion.
It's a really good game.
I didn't have a good computer for Morrowind, and then I had a lot on my plate for Skyrim.
That makes sense. Yes. Yeah. Oblivion was a massive step in like visual fidelity and game mechanics that were approachable for people.
Sure.
A lot of what I don't like about the step from Morrowind to Oblivion is like Morrowind had more different weapon categories and deeper systems in certain ways and like all this.
Yeah, but you play
junk.
Tarkov.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you want to put that bullet in that gun in that weather at that time of day?
Well, 366 ammo fits in a 7.62 mag, but it doesn't fit into a 7.62 rifle. Yeah, so like I understand, but yeah, I'm really, really excited about this. I'm absolutely going to play it the day it launches. Really cool project. I do believe they're looking for volunteers, so if you're into whatever they're looking for, probably development. But I know they often look. It might be done now. I don't know, but they often look like voice actors and whatever else because they're redoing like a lot of the voice lines and stuff. And as far as I know, they're adding more than what the base game had. So I don't know. Hopefully I didn't say anything wrong there, but very exciting.
Dan, do you want to feed us a couple merch messages?
Sure, I've got one here from James. Question for Luke and Linus. Do you want to play RuneScape?
I never tried it.
I definitely did play. I was very into games like that.
What are the other games like?
Well, back then it was. I mean, not back then. It's an MMO. RuneScape, different format. It was in your browser, all this kind of stuff, but it was still an MMO.
Sure.
I was a little small child when RuneScape was first kind of coming around. So I have two stories that I think are funny from back in the RuneScape days. We had net nannies and dial-up, also known as the internet, is probably slower than most people watching this could actually understand. To the point where I tell this story and people think I'm exaggerating. I used to load up RuneScape and then I used to load up RuneScape and then go downstairs, make a sandwich, make some juice, eat the sandwich, drink the juice, go back upstairs, and it was usually almost done. And I am not exaggerating. And I eat really slowly. And this is something that I could do consistently. It was impressive to me, even when I was a kid, that it would complete loading. And then I could actually play the game, which was great. And then the other one is that in MMO, people talk to each other. And in that game, speech bubbles, right? So I would walk by and I would see someone with speech bubbles in it, and I would automatically think they were talking to me. So I used to just run up to anyone that was talking and just respond to anything that they were saying. And one of my friends watched me play once and was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean?" Well, they're not talking. They're talking to the person that's standing in front of them or whatever.
I mean, we've all had our idiotic gaming moments. I have some far more recent ones than that. Yeah, there was this VR game that was like an arena, like a three-dimensional arena, space shooter thing.
Sure.
The way that I could best describe it is there's this showdown scene where the Dark Jedi student fights one of the good ones in the Young Jedi Knight series of expanded universe novels. So it's basically this dome cage match, zero gravity thing. So anyway, kind of like that. Pretty obscure way of describing it.
I actually can picture it perfectly.
Yeah,
but
the scene with Zek and he has to fight Jaina or whatever. I don't remember. Anyway, the point is a lot better than the sequel trilogy. Anyway, it was basically that, and I didn't realize as I was sitting there just talking to myself about my preparations and chatting with people that the mic in this game was automatically open, and I've got these 11-year-olds screeching in my ear. I can't figure out how to turn it off. I'm sitting there going, how do I turn this off? How do I turn this off? It was definitely an old man moment for me. Yeah. All right, Dan, hit me.
Okay, this one's from Nathan. Thoughts on account locked phones becoming largely e-waste? Fell into the trap of unknowingly buying a locked phone on eBay, and Apple would not take the phone or assist in any way. They can be used for parts, but it would be nice if they were... Yeah, iCloud locked phone.
Honestly, I fully support it. I know, controversial take, but password, hardware encrypted devices with the NAND, with the storage, whether through the NAND or through the controller, with the storage essentially permanently bound to the board, basically eliminated phone theft.
I was just going to say, wouldn't this dissuade phone theft?
Yeah, and to be clear, phone theft is not eliminated, and there are workarounds. But it significantly de-incentivized phone theft, and phone theft was a huge problem in the early to mid-noughts.
If you were able to get into the phone, could you release your account from it?
Yeah.
Yeah, then I don't think so.
Yeah, so it's but it is a problem because we run into careless users donating phones and not unlocking them, or even careless organizations basically saying, these are all managed by our organization, we would please be destroyed because we have whatever irrational concerns about data theft or whatever smart screw or whatever stupid thing like that. Now, okay, I can say that there are valid reasons why it's great. But the point is, they can do that. Sure. So where they basically get these iPads need to be destroyed because someone might, find out our typing tutor scores or whatever.
Take away. I don't think they should take that away.
No, but we do need a solution, though, right? And the only really viable solution is a backdoor. And a backdoor is automatically a backdoor is a door. If you exactly. And so it's one of those really tough ones, right? I've said before on this show, anyone who claims that the solution is simple to a problem that has not been solved yet is either a liar or an idiot, right?
All I'm saying here is that I think the solution is working. I think phones should be hard locked.
Yeah. Oh no, I meant the solution to the C-waste problem.
Oh yeah.
And I fully support working device encryption. Whether it's phones or laptops, computers, portable ones, not portable ones, are no longer such a huge target for theft. And It's my take, whether I can defend it or not, is I think it's better this way.
Yeah, me.
You know what? Me too. That's one thing that I do agree with. But let me into the bootloader when I own the phone. You want another one?
You won't get any argument from us there.
No.
Yeah.
What else we got to talk about today? Oh, thank goodness, there's a new HomePod. Now with temperature and humidity sensors for smart home. I thought so too, but no, it's a second-gen HomePod. It's $50 less than the first-gen starting price at $300 US. It has fewer tweeters and fewer mics, which is cool. But it adds UWB and Thread, so you can. So it has like that like location chip, which could be actually really neat. If you got HomePods all over your house because you're a mega baller, and then you have your iPhone, it could like know where you are and like play music. You're farther away, it could like make it louder or something. I don't know that they'll ever implement anything like that, but theoretically they could. The HomePod Mini also secretly included the humidity and temperature sensors, so it will be updated to activate them, so that's cool. Adding features to a smart home product instead of removing them. I mean, I guess I support this. I'm not that into hidden sensors and things that are not disclosed. I mean, you know...
Dan just leaves. He's gone. He walked right off.
I mean, if he's anything like me, he probably has to go pee-pee at this point because we've been on the show for quite a while.
It has been a long time.
Anyway, there's some also other more different new Apple products. There's M3 Pro and Max, and they're faster. And there's like some MacBooks and some Mac Minis that have those in them. I guess that's pretty cool. It's a pretty quiet announcement. I think we got our hands on a couple of them. I don't even know if we're going to cover these things on LPG though. We tend to be so late on them that by the time we cover them, the conversation's sort of over. So we'll probably just hit them on short circuit. Yeah, sorry, totally quality content, but you guys don't want me to whatever. And then we'll definitely cover them on Mac address eventually. I'll get around to it. And then in the future, once the lab is all set up, we'll be able to really cut this stuff out. But in the meantime, we'll just look at stuff. In other Apple news, Apple TV requires a separate Apple device to accept the terms of service. This week, Twitter user @HugeLGUp posted a picture of their Apple TV, which was inoperable because it required the user to accept the terms and conditions agreement on a separate device using an up-to-date copy of iOS. I have talked extensively about this kind of error from Apple. Oh, I'm sorry. You haven't purchased enough of our products. Well, I hope you don't expect the ones you did buy to function. Haha, maybe next time you should be more rich.
I was actually hoping that. I was really interested how this is going to go. Every time it was spanned by term.
I was just going to go straight after Corby. That was my plan. I was going to be like, well, they should get more money then. That's it.
That's a 10.
And
No, we don't.
I mean, I've talked about this so much in the past. As a daily driver user of exactly one Apple product, the AirPods Pro 2s, or they're called, I don't even remember, whatever, the second-gen AirPods Pro,
I'm also using one first-gen, just straight up AirPods.
So as a user of one Apple product, I have found myself extremely frustrated at the way that I am treated. I'm treated as a second-class citizen. There is literally no way for me to update the firmware of my product. In the case of the first-gen AirPods, that was apparently a bit of a bullet dodge, given that they nerfed the active noise cancellation. But in the case of the second-gen AirPods, I haven't seen any reason to believe that that would be a benefit, and the fact that there is no way to plug that device, because they don't explicitly say that it is not supported on Android or Windows devices. It does, in fact, work just fine. Okay, so then would you consider not providing firmware updates to be supported? I don't know. Seems pretty BS to me. So the only way to update your firmware is to be paired to an iPhone, to have it nearby, and to have them both be charging and sleeping. And then it will just happen automatically. That's not an acceptable answer. I mean, Apple knew that once upon a time. Back in the days of the iPod, they built iTunes for Windows. Because they understood when you bought an iPod, you expect an iPod.
Someone in Fortune fact said Apple
I believe them. I just don't believe that it's a high priority. I think that
if there's no public confirmation, it's not a high priority.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that this is one of those. This is also one of those bugs that comes about from tunnel vision. Like this is a bug that exists because
that's not a bug. That'll be a lack of a feature.
Because I mean the product is developed in an environment where there's an assumption. It's kind of like, okay, I had a really awkward encounter somewhere. He's like getting right up to it, and he goes, Yeah, he kind of turns to me and goes, bro, it must be broken. Something along those lines. And he kind of like is on his way walking out, and I go, oh man, I don't know. I put my hands under the sink. It immediately works. Why?
Skin color? Yeah, yikes.
Because he was black.
Yeah,
And I'm looking at it going,
that's brutal.
that's a bug.
Oh yeah.
Fucking bad bug.
Yep.
That's not like, oops.
Yeah.
That's like, we literally only ever considered that white skin might go under this sensor.
That's brutal.
Big yikes, right? And honestly, I see a lot of this in Apple's product development, is they just have these complete and utter to the point where it has to be intentional blind spots.
Yeah.
What? Doesn't everyone have an iPhone? So this screen would have come up, and remember, this is a big company, right? Like, it's not like one person, worked on the updater or like the terms and conditions update flow for this, right? So this would have come up for many people at some point, and they all would have gone, oh, okay, so I can use my iPhone for this. And no one at any point thought, what if I don't have an iPhone? That's what happened. So yeah, it's a bug. Yeah, it's probably an accident. But you still suck. Like, that doesn't make it better. Obviously, this is not as bad as that sensor, right? But it also is really bad. Because what if your reason for not being able to have an iPhone is your socioeconomic position? What if you got an Apple TV as a gift, and this is just a giant FU for not being able to afford more? That's not cool either, right? So, yeah, not cool. Not cool, not even a little. Yeah, maybe that's why Tim Cook's salary got cut. Could be it. Anywho, I think that was kind of all there was to say about that. Alex has a note in here, though. I really hate that with Apple TV Plus, the service, not the device, the video quality settings are horrific unless you're watching on an Apple device. Yeah, that's the kind of thing, man.
Why is that necessary?
Yeah, back when Apple used to make their keynotes only watchable on Apple devices until after, it's like, but you don't want to sell to people who don't already have one? What kind of next level living up inside your own rectum universe do you exist in? Like, what is your problem, Like, it's not even that they're outside of their rights to do that they can, but that's just whole thing to do. Why? Ew. Why would I buy anything from you? Why would I even talk to you? Anyway.
Speaking of crazy things to do, or alternative things to do, Wyoming plans to phase out. The Wyoming legislature passed a resolution to eliminate all sales of new EVs by 2030. Legislators justified this move based on potential pollution and battery waste and the importance of. Beyond that, they say that Wyoming is simply too empty and underpopulated to ever need EVs because there is only limited EV infrastructure to ban. State Senator Brian
Let's not talk about
Bonner?
Good, nice recovery. Good save.
Brian Bonner, the bill's sponsor, describes it as tongue-in-cheek, but a serious issue that deserves discussion. The bill is purely symbolic and has no effect on the legal status. I'm genuinely confused.
It's pretty much just a way of
if it bans,
it's a resolution, though.
Okay.
Not a law. So it's kind of like when a country creates a resolution that they will reduce climate change by X amount.
So it's a goal. It's a New Year's resolution.
Nothing will happen. Nothing will change.
Yeah.
It was mostly included because it was one of our topics for defending the indefensible.
God.
I don't know. You know what? This is another thing that I've had some really good sort of conversations with Yvonne about, where she kind of goes, for her. I really like her sort of analysis of how polarization has gotten out of hand, because it's a behavior that she's noticed in herself and in me over the years when we'll argue, when we are legitimately taking out two different sides of an issue. And she says, yeah, what I have a tendency to do is when I feel like the other side of the argument has gone so far away from the truth, which often lies somewhere in the middle, is that I feel like I need to compensate. It's kind of like how if you've got a parent who's super angry all the time and abusive, the other one might feel pressure to try to make up for it. Whereas if both took a more balanced approach, that might actually be healthier for the child. And in the same way, if two sides of an issue were to attempt to see eye to eye on it rather than be sort of lured into these farther and farther extreme positions, we might have a chance of actually having a constructive conversation, because the reality of it is that the upcoming avalanche of battery e-waste is a legitimate problem.
And how we harvest the minerals required to manufacture them is also like...
And where they're coming from is a
like super not okay.
is a legitimate problem.
Yeah.
The defense of the oil and gas sector is absolutely not a defensible reason for bringing it up.
Yeah.
They're deplorable too.
And like just because you don't like parts from one thing doesn't mean that you need to be 100% aligned with everything on the other side.
So that's all I have to say about that.
Batteries are a huge problem. We used to actually talk with some Lancho fairly often, because I think probably around 2 years ago, it felt like every few months we'd hear some rumor about a new battery technology. Remember this?
Yeah, I mean, they're still coming. I mean, my Google News feed is full of them.
Coming. Yeah,
yeah, all the time. Yeah. This one's good, 1,000 miles and blah, 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 and it'll be perfectly recyclable. Yeah, where is it?
The main thing we need is just something that doesn't require the same material. Like, the materials required for current high-end batteries is like very problematic. But yeah, I don't know. That's a
I mean, that's a big part of the argument for hydrogen fuel cells, right? Is that they're supposed to be, well, essentially they're supposed to just run on energy, blah, blah, etc. I know, I get it. But we can't reach an optimal solution if we aren't willing to at least consider the concerns of the other party.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that every concern from the other party is valid.
Also fair.
And that makes it very challenging. That makes it very challenging, right?
Yeah.
What is valid is Google's move to make the Stadia controller usable. Yeah, after Stadia goes the way of the dodo. They released a self-service tool to enable Bluetooth on Stadia controllers. But hey, cool. Bluetooth must be enabled before December 31st, 2023.
Did you miss me?
That's weird.
Why? Okay. While Stadia was compatible with most third-party controllers, the rationale for the Stadia controller was that you could connect directly to the server via Wi-Fi, which is cool. But it won't do that anymore. The Bluetooth, I guess, also fine. I think we can kind of switch over to some web messages here. Can we do that?
Yeah. I've got one here. Oh, we've already done. Okay. This one's from Austin. Hey, I just wanted to
Austin, Texas?
The whole case. Hey, I just wanted to bring up that I'm currently working on a fiber-to-home ISP that is bringing 10 gig to residential California at a reasonable price. Some of my coworkers claim that it's not necessary. What is your thought? It's not necessary.
Yeah.
What the heck are you going to do with it? What are you going to connect? What are you going to connect to?
I just lost.
Like, I actually think they should have been on the defend the indefensible wheel, because it is an indefensible position to say that you could need 10 gig internet at home.
So your poorly secured IoT device is like off the wall.
I mean, honestly though, like you could, okay, let's go through the arguments, right? So that you could have lots of people there. Well, realistically, you probably live in a single family dwelling, said it's residential, so no, actually. The number
might not be lost, or it might be lost, but it's not going to be like
the vast majority of the at that speed,
crash and waves.
You are going to be spending. You will not be able to work enough hours to afford the hard drives that you are going to need to contain all this data.
Everyone so far that's saying that they want it says just because. No one has a reason.
Well, I get it, because when we got a 10 gig connection here, that was why I said it.
Yeah, I mean it's sick, but like. Yes, it's okay, but
we have 100 people here now, so
we might actually use a lot of it.
Yeah,
finally. The question? Yeah, the thing was claims that it's not necessary. Of course it's not necessary.
All right. Put it in anyway.
Sorry, Austin.
Are you guys actually opposed to being tech forward right now? This is A-Prime. I'm sorry. This is the highlight waffles, but you're eating pancakes argument. That is stupid. That is not what we said. We said it's not necessary.
Yes.
And I'm not saying don't lay the fiber.
Oh, we were saying it's not necessary.
By all means, let's get ready.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah, eventually we'll be able to
you know what?
stream 3D model files into whatever. Who knows? I don't know.
Hot take.
Yeah.
Hot take. We will never need a 10 gigabit home. I didn't say it was bad. I said it's hot. It's hot. Hey, can I?
The amount of
Are you
water.
making a channel? Are you making a channel?
We need to have our.
Can I talk? What are the primary drivers of bandwidth consumption now? Yeah. Right? Okay, sure. Yeah, primary driver of bandwidth. Okay. Right now, we are at 4K, right? 3D, coming back. We're at 4K. We are at color depths that, while not we're at dynamic ranges and color depths that are not maxing out the capabilities of the eye, but we're starting to talk about the capabilities of the eye. Okay. For resolution, right? We could go further, but at what is considered to be, and even going back to the early days of projection theaters, at what is a ratio of your field of vision. At what is a ratio of your field of vision that is considered optimal to reduce motion sickness, okay? There is a solid argument to be made that 8K is unnecessary.